Okay, so I think one of the issues that I want to talk about and see if I can't raise this in a sort of fine tooth way is it's a concern over the way forms of personal unhappiness or personal misery or we'll call it bad conscience can infect a person through failing to meet duties and the degree to which contemporary scientific orientations, and in particular, studies of the brain and brain chemistry, neurophysiology, and I guess pharmacology, right? I mean, rises of pharmaceutical science and the degrees to which there are now pills for everything. Um, I think the concern is that if you just take something like this, right, that many people have aspirations and goals. They have things that they want to do, or they have things that sort of get thrown on their lap. And in either case, there are duties that need to be taken care of. There are things that need to be done. And because a person is a self-conscious, self-aware being, I think they can, to various degrees, live up to the kinds of obligations that are on their plate, whether those obligations are aspired sort of self-avowed goals or their duties that were thrown in one's lap by life's circumstances and other forces. People nonetheless do have a kind of self-understanding, and I think they feel about themselves in some way with regard to how well they have or have not lived up to those. And there does seem to be forms of what could be called a kind of psychological sickness or a kind of bad conscience that comes from a felt dereliction of duty. There's people, when they know they're supposed to do stuff and then they goof off and then they fail to do what they know they were supposed to do, they can end up, again, feeling a kind of sickness. And when this gets worse and worse, my guess is it can grow into a habitual state of affairs without a person even realizing what's happening. And the next thing you know, like globally, they just feel a certain way. Now, they don't attribute it to be a result of a kind of existential failure in life itself. Instead, it gets written off as some sort of vague sense of, I don't know, of bad conscience or of, again, psychological malaise. Now, in the contemporary world, I think we seem to think, or I don't know, I mean, this would be part of the question. I mean, do we think that all psychological problems, all personal problems, can be solved with a pill? Is that the deal? Now, someone might say, well, I mean, there certainly are practices and things one can do. When you fail in your duties, what do? Well, you let it go and you get going on to the next thing. Well, what's the next thing to do? You just go on to the next thing. There's so much good work there by David K. Reynolds on Nikon and Morita. And, anytime there's a failure, that failure itself gives you an opportunity for heroism that is right there. Well, what did you do next? And so, I mean, I think there is a chance for existential creation of meaning with its own horizons of mental wellness. But that as an option, I think it's like waning in the culture. People don't think of it as being there. And instead, they'll say, well, look, when you do those activities, I mean, say I believe that, I don't know, personal fitness or taking care of one's garden, or if you have a hobby of practicing that hobby, or if you have books that you bought and you want to read, if you're not reading them, you get on them, you find the time to do that. And I think there is a feeling good that comes from setting goals and self-disciplined practices that bring you to those goals. Now, someone might come along and go, oh, well, you're feeling good about that, but deep down, it's really just, there's chemicals in your brain, and those chemicals, they were there, and when you do that, you're releasing them, but you could just put the chemicals in there. And why not just, instead of trying to deal with so many psychological problems, by getting people to change their lives, why not realize that it's just a brain chemistry? So, and this is where I think there is, there's a lot of ambiguity and there are problems here. I don't think that all problems are existential problems. There do seem to be brain chemistry problems and problems for which, I think we should be very thankful that, there are modern pharmaceutical science is absolutely amazing. I mean, people who do have various forms of chemical dependence, and I don't mean just on drugs, I mean on pharmaceutical drugs, that their lives would have ended were it not for the contemporary pharmaceutical companies. That there are tons of people whose lives really do depend upon and I mean their mental well-being, everything from drugs for schizophrenia, manic depression, lots of epilepsy drugs. There really are a great number of, um, I guess, of pharmacological solutions to problems. And their problems were misdiagnosed for many years. I think we blamed people, especially, take schizophrenia. I mean, for a long time there was a double bind hypothesis, and it's sort of like we created an ideology of schizophrenia that blamed people for bringing it about, not realizing that there are genetic factors, there are environmental factors, but a lot of it is, it has to do with chemical imbalance. That said, not all problems are simply that. There does seem to be a whole horizon, a whole, we could sort of vistas of meaning where the issue is one of self-relation and the problem of an organism who can aspire and have goals and then dwell in the memory and anticipation of that relationship. That is, as self-understanding beings, there seems to be something like, again, good conscience and bad conscience, and those are part of a kind of mental wellness or psychological health that I don't know that those can, if those can really be best addressed through a pill. Um, if some person wants to propose that, uh, I think, wouldn't that be a problem? Or how do people, I mean, I'm interested. How do people think about this issue? Can people here see that even if there are, um, you know, let's say, the brain is a necessary, but it's not a sufficient condition for human experience. Human experience has to have goals, and goals are they're in the world and their projected future. To simply reduce one's goals to a brain state is a problem, because I think the brain is always managing the relations we have to our past and to our future. To suddenly collapse all of those relations, like past, present, and future, all into one given present brain state is to miss what that dynamic is. Again, there seems to be a kind of existential project, a horizon of meaning. That's part of what we mean by mental wellness. And we don't want to say that, yeah, that's the what cures all that ails you. I mean, everyone just, live a vigilant, self-disciplined life, and, don't break too many promises that you set to yourself and you'll be fine. I think we could say that, but no, it's more complicated than that. But if people don't remember and recognize that horizon, and they think that their own dereliction of duty and their own failures to live up to what they know they ought to be is going to be able to be escaped through either a drink or a drug, or worse, a pharmaceutical happy pill, I think they may be deeply deluded. I'm interested what other people think. Okay, thanks.